A violent metallic slam jolted Cole Hartman's truck as he passed the county shelter, followed by a bark so raw it froze him mid-breath. A gray shepherd was smashing itself against a transport crate, eyes wide, not in rage, but terror. And it wasn't looking at the deputy it had injured. It stared past him upward, scanning the empty sky like something up there was moving closer. Cole knew that posture. He'd seen it 10 seconds before a rooftop device killed his last partner. Another slam. Another skyward stare. Then the dog did something that made Cole's stomach drop. It braced as if expecting impact. The wind along the Oregon coast carried nothing but salt and quiet, yet the shepherd's body stayed locked muscles, trembling eyes, glued to a patch of empty sky as if tracking an invisible threat. Cole felt the old instinct crawl up his spine, the one he'd buried in a shack above the cliffs, the one he swore he'd never answer again. The deputy shouted something about aggression levels and mandatory euthanasia, but Cole barely heard him. What mattered was the dog's breathing fast, shallow, stuttering in a way he remembered from sand-blown alleys and broken radio chatter. A low rumble of thunder rolled far offshore. The dog flinched so hard its paws skidded on metal. Cole's pulse kicked. That wasn't a thunder flinch, he thought. That was a blast memory. The sky was clear. No helicopters. No explosions. Just a terrified animal predicting something no one else could see. Cole should have walked away. He knew that. He'd built an entire life around walking away. But the dog suddenly stopped shaking and stared directly at him as if recognizing something. And that was when Cole realized the real question wasn't what the dog sensed, but why it saw him as the only one who could stop it. The county shelter was barely a speck in Cole Hartman's rearview mirror when the tension in his chest began to tighten rather than ease. He kept one hand on the wheel and the other pressed against his thigh, trying to quiet the pulse he felt hammering beneath the skin. He'd driven past that shelter 24 times over the past year. He'd ignored every cry, bark, and metal rattle that spilled out of its concrete walls. But he'd never seen a dog look at the sky like that. Thunder rolled somewhere far off the coast, a low, sluggish vibration that barely touched the pavement. But Cole's fingers tightened anyway. "Don't do this," he muttered under his breath. "Don't start thinking." The road bending out of town rose quickly, curving through evergreens that leaned toward the ocean like they were listening for something. The air was heavy with cold mist. The Oregon coastline always smelled faintly of iron, sharp, metallic, alive. Cole preferred that sharpness. He understood things with edges. His old pickup groaned as he pushed it up the incline. The engine wasn't failing, just old. Like him. Nothing dramatic, just tired in all the places that mattered. He rolled his shoulder twice to loosen the stiffness gnawing at it. The movement tugged at scar tissue hidden beneath his flannel shirt. The scars didn't hurt. Not physically. They were just reminders of an older version of himself he didn't like revisiting. At the next tight bend, he lifted his foot from the accelerator, letting the truck slow without braking. The Pacific came into view, an endless slate of shifting gray and silver. The waves hit the cliffside in steady, punishing rhythms, like the ocean was teaching the land a lesson. It had no intention of letting it forget. Cole kept his eyes on the horizon. He tried to settle into the familiar routine of breathing with the sea. Inhale with the wave, exhale with the pullback. But his breathing wasn't sinking. It hadn't since he'd heard that metallic slam. He tightened his grip on the wheel. Forget the shelter. Forget the dog. Forget the look. But the look wouldn't leave. And it wasn't just fear. It was recognition. He reached the turnoff to the narrow road, leading to his shack, a single-lane strip carved against the cliff like somebody had given up halfway through building it. Moss grew thick over the asphalt. Every winter a section of it slid a little closer to the ocean. Cole liked that. Unreliable roads kept casual visitors away. His shack came into view after another minute of climbing a crooked box of cedar planks, fog-stained and weather-beaten, perched on a patch of land no developer in their right mind would touch. A long dead spruce stood beside it, trunk trimmed down to a tall stump, its top broken off by a storm years ago. Cole pulled up beside the stump and killed the engine. Silence washed over him, not the gentle kind, but heavy, almost suffocating, the kind of silence he had built brick by brick around himself. The kind he trusted more than people. He stepped out boots, sinking into wet moss, and scanned the horizon out of habit. Up here you could see nearly everything, fishing boats returning, early storms forming offshore, the long tail of fog crawling inland. Nothing unusual, nothing wrong, except that everything felt wrong. He walked up to the shack hand, brushing the weathered railing. The porch creaked under his weight. He paused, letting the cold wind slap against his face, hoping it might clear the image from his mind. But instead of fading, the dog's skyward stare became sharper. He pictured the wide pupils, the pinned ears, the trembling frame, not aggression, stress response, combat-conditioned fear. Cole exhaled through clenched teeth, trying to seal the memory away. He opened the shack door, stepped inside, and locked it behind him, an instinct carried over from a life far behind him. The interior smelled faintly of cedar smoke and cold metal. His space was simple: a cot, a stove, a military-grade footlocker, and a table with one chair. A few shelves lined the wall, holding only the essentials: food tools, extra batteries, a weather radio he rarely used. He crossed to the counter and filled a dented kettle, placing it on the stove. The click of the lighter and the hiss of the flame were comforting in their predictability. He spooned instant coffee into a mug, then paused. That one moment just before his spoon hit the cup, his breath caught. His mind replayed the dog's body language in slow motion, the way it froze, mid-lunge nostrils, flaring eyes fixed high. "Stop," he told himself. "Don't go there." He completed the coffee ritual, poured hot water, stirred. The smell was harsh, bitter, grounding. He carried the mug to the window facing the ocean. From here, the sea stretched endless and cold, like it didn't care who stared back. Storm clouds loitered low on the horizon, dark and swollen with the promise of trouble. But the weather wasn't what made Cole's pulse thrum. It was the way the dog's memory had replaced the ocean. He stepped onto the porch, sat in the old chair he'd patched a dozen times, and watched the bitter foam of the waves break on the rocks below. The wind picked up, tugging at his sleeves and stinging his face. He didn't mind. The cold kept his thoughts in order. "Not my problem," he whispered. But he didn't believe it. The dog's terror wasn't generic. It wasn't some abused family pet fear. No, this was layered, conditioned, reinforced. A response drilled into an animal that had lived next to explosions, alarms, unnatural threats. "I know what you were looking for," he said quietly. Talking to himself wasn't new. Talking to himself like this was. He ran a thumb along the rim of the mug, absorbing its warmth. The waves grew louder. The sky grew darker. A gull screamed overhead, and for half a second, Cole's breath stuttered, something too close to a memory pushing forward. He forced it down. He stood abruptly, as if stopping the thought by moving fast enough. Inside, he set the mug on the counter, opened the junk drawer, and stared at the weather radio. He hadn't touched it since last winter, when a sudden squall had blown through and nearly shoved his porch into the ocean. He picked it up, turned it on. Static hissed. Then marine advisory for offshore waters, winds, increasing barometric pressure dropping. He listened not because of the storm, but because the sound kept him grounded. Something about the voice, clipped and impersonal, steadied his nerves. The radio squawked again. He turned it off. Cole paced across the shack. Once. Twice. 3 times. His boots made soft thuds on the old wooden planks. Then he stopped in front of the metal footlocker, unopened for years. He crouched, rested a hand on the lid, felt the cold bite his palm. "Don't," he murmured. "Not for a dog you don't even know." But he didn't move away. The lock was old but sturdy. The metal smelled of rust and dust. Memories padded silently around him, like shadows in a room he didn't want to enter. He pushed to his feet, suddenly angry at himself, at the dog, at the past. He grabbed his jacket and left the shack, letting the wind close the door behind him. The trail down to the beach was steep, and felt steeper with his mind racing. Moss-coated rocks, salt-stained wood, a slick patch of mud. Cole knew every bump and dip by heart. The fog was lifting, now shredded by the wind, revealing more of the coastline. The ocean roared louder as he descended, the tide curling inward with the sound of distant thunder. He reached the sand and walked toward the water, letting the cold spray hit his face. His breath fogged in the air. For a moment, he let himself feel something like quiet. But then the helicopter sound returned, faint, distant, barely audible. A low thrum of rotor blades somewhere over the water. Cole froze. Images came uninvited, his old partner freezing mid-stride, ears, pinned head snapping toward the sky. The hard realization that someone was above them. He inhaled sharply. "Not today," he whispered, but the memory had already uncoiled. He turned sharply and began climbing back toward his shack. Halfway up the trail, he caught movement again, the same county pickup from before. It slowed as it passed the trail entrance, the driver scanning the bluff as if looking for something or someone. Cole ducked behind a rock outcropping. He stayed still until the truck rolled on. And that was when it hit him. He wasn't the only one who couldn't let the dog go, which meant the dog wasn't safe, which meant, damn it, it actually was his problem. He returned to the shack with a clarity he didn't want. He hung his jacket, wiped moisture off his beard, and closed the door behind him. The weather radio buzzed faintly on the counter, forgotten but still relevant. He walked to the footlocker again. This time, he didn't hesitate. He pulled the small key from a nail he kept by the window. It was old, slightly bent, but familiar. He slid it into the lock. turned it. The click echoed louder than it should have. He lifted the lid. Inside lay the pieces of a life he'd buried: a folded K9 harness, a pair of sand-scarred goggles, a patch with a unit insignia, a leash frayed near the clasp, a laminated photo tucked beneath it all, him and his dog side by side in desert tan. Cole swallowed hard, throat thick. "Why now?" he whispered. He reached into the trunk, fingers trembling. He touched the patch first, then the leash. His breath hitched. He let the lid fall shut. He stood slowly, gripping the edge of the counter for balance. The shack felt smaller, tighter, like the walls were leaning in. He looked at the door, at the storm beginning to form offshore, at the path leading down to town. Then he grabbed his keys. He didn't tell himself he was going for the dog. He just drove. But he knew exactly where he was going. The dog wasn't the only one who recognized something today. Cole Hartman did too. The town sat under a sheet of low cloud by the time Cole returned. Mist clung to the sidewalks and telephone lines, turning everything soft around the edges except the weight pressing on his chest. That stayed sharp. He parked behind the feed store and walked the gravel lot toward the shelter's back entrance. He didn't want an audience. He didn't want questions. He wanted one thing: to see if the dog was still alive. The shelter yard was quiet, too quiet. No barking chorus, no echo from the main runs. Just the hum of the HVAC unit and the faint metallic clinks of someone working inside. Cole stepped toward the rear gate. A voice cut through the fog. "Didn't think you'd come back." Jared, the shelter director, stood near the loading ramp, a thermos in his hand. He wasn't in uniform, just a gray hoodie and jeans, but the way he carried himself hadn't changed from his days in law enforcement. Shoulders squared. Eyes steady. The stance of a man used to keeping chaotic things contained. Cole nodded once. "I need to see him." Jared raised an eyebrow. "You don't want to. I do." "You sure?" He took a chunk out of my deputy. "Spent the morning trying to chew through steel." Cole inhaled slowly. "Where is he?" Jared studied him for a long moment, the way you study a man standing near a cliff's edge. Not judging, just calculating whether he'll fall or jump. Finally, quarantine wing. "Follow me." He led Cole through the side door and into a narrow hallway lined with cinderblock walls. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, humming like old wires ready to give out. As they walked, Jared said, "You handled yourself calmly out there yesterday. Most people run the other way when a dog goes full panic." "I've seen it before," Cole said. "Different context." Military Cole gave the smallest nod. Jared didn't pry. "Then you understand why we're nervous. That dog didn't just react. He predicted. He was looking for a threat none of us saw." "Yes," Cole said quietly. "I noticed." They stopped at a door with a latch marked "Quarantine," divided by "Restricted Access." Jared pushed it open. Inside was a long concrete aisle with 5 kennel runs on each side. Metal bars, thick plexiglass panels, industrial drains along the floor. It smelled of bleach, wet fur, and old fear. The farthest run on the left held the gray shepherd. Cole felt the air leave his lungs. The dog stood pressed against the back corner chest, rising fast in shallow coat mottled with dry dust from the crate. His left shoulder bore an old burn scar that hadn't healed evenly. His paws were raw from slamming metal. His eyes flicked from ceiling to ceiling again, trapped in a loop. Not rage, not dominance. Pure trapped terror. Cole approached slowly. The dog's gaze snapped to him. His body tightened, but he didn't lunge. He just stared, trembling hard enough to rattle his breathing. Jared crossed his arms. "This is the best he's been all morning. I don't know what he sees in you, but he stops trying to escape whenever you're in the room." Cole knelt 6 feet from the bars, lowering himself into a smaller silhouette. The concrete was cold beneath his knees. The dog's ears shifted. Not forward, just less pinned. "Easy," Cole murmured. He wasn't sure why he said it. Instinct, maybe. Or memory. He slowly extended his hand palm down, not touching the bars, just letting his scent move forward. The dog's head jerked upward as if bracing for impact. Someone hit him from above, Cole thought. He's expecting it again. Jared broke the silence. "There's something you should know." Cole didn't look away from the dog. "What?" Deputy Briggs filed his incident report early. Because he's the injured party, the county risk board processed it fast. Too fast. A cold coil tightened in Cole's stomach. "How fast?" Jared exhaled. "Fast enough that we received this half an hour ago." He unfolded a sheet of paper from his hoodie pocket and handed it over. Cole scanned the header, "Order of Euthanasia Risks and Liability Overrides 7 days." His throat went dry. "He'll be destroyed in 7 days," Cole asked softly. "Unless," Jared said, "we can prove he's manageable." "How manageable?" Jared pointed at a highlighted section of the form. He needs to accept a muzzle and walk on a lead from kennel to transport without lunging. That's literally all the board requires. If we can film that, we're allowed to transfer him to a specialty sanctuary in Colorado. 7 days, Cole whispered. 7, Jared confirmed. And Briggs is pushing for sooner. From the back corner of the kennel, the shepherd let out a low aching whine. Cole's jaw tightened. He sat down fully on the cold floor, legs folded, posture relaxed, an offer of peace. The dog watched him trembling. Cole spoke quietly. I know that sound, soldier. Jared blinked. Soldier Cole didn't answer. Not out loud. But the truth was there, pulsing in the back of his mind like a beacon. This wasn't a backyard-bred dog. This wasn't a pet gone wrong. This was a working animal. A dog shaped by commands, alarms, and trauma. Everything in Cole's chest tightened with a familiar pressure. Did you get any paperwork with him? Cole asked. Jared nodded toward a metal filing cabinet near the door. What the owner dropped off is in there. Meredith, the vet tech, filed it. I want to see it. Jared hesitated. All right. He retrieved a clear plastic sleeve and handed it to Cole. The packet held 3 items. A microchip scan printout labeled Restricted Corporate Security Contract. A blank surrender form filled with angry handwriting. A single page of medical notes with half the sections blacked out. Cole stared at the microchip report. Restricted. Corporate security. His pulse kicked. Jared knelt beside him. Anything Cole forced the emotion down. Maybe. You think he's trained? Cole nodded once. And stressed. Those are different things. The dog in the corner whined again, softer this time. Cole lowered his voice and extended his hand slightly closer, palm angled sideways, not a reach, not a grab, just presence. Slowly, reluctantly, the dog shifted his weight forward. His nails scraped the concrete. His ears twitched. He took one shaky step and sniffed the air. He didn't come close, but he didn't retreat. Cole swallowed. That tiny step cost the dog everything he had left. Behind them, a door swung open sharply. Cole stiffened. The dog jolted backwards, slamming into the wall with a yelp. Deputy Briggs strode into the aisle sleeve, still bandaged, jaw clenched tight. Well, look at that, he said. Still a monster. Briggs, Jared warned, keep your distance. Briggs held up a clipboard. This is official. 7 days. Don't say I didn't try to warn you. That thing is a liability waiting to. Shut the door, Cole snapped. Briggs blinked, startled. Shut the door, Cole repeated, voice, low but controlled. You're scaring him. Briggs hesitated, then scoffed. You think that thing can be unscared? You think he's fixable? Cole didn't answer. He didn't look away from the dog. Briggs shoved the door closed, muttering curses. Jared exhaled slowly. He's not in a good headspace. No, Cole agreed. Neither is the dog. And you, Jared asked quietly. Cole didn't answer. Not directly. Instead, he said, give me the 7 days. Jared studied him. Cole, are you sure? This isn't easy work. And you look like someone who left this life behind for a reason. I did. Then why do this? Cole's throat tightened. He stared at the trembling shepherd fur, dull breath, uneven eyes darting like every second was a countdown. I don't know, Cole said, voice barely audible. But something tells me I need to. The dog lifted his head. For the first time, his gaze didn't go upward. It went to Cole. And something in it, something raw and pleading, hooked deep. Jared stepped back. All right. 7 days. But if Briggs tries to intervene, I'll handle Briggs. And the dog Cole exhaled slowly. That's the problem, he said. The dog might handle me. He rose to his feet, knees cracking from the cold floor, and took one step back toward the door. Tomorrow, he said. I start tomorrow. You'll be here at dawn. Cole nodded. Earlier, Jared unlocked the quarantine door. I'll let the staff know. Cole paused in the doorway and looked once more at the trembling shepherd. 7 days. 7 days to undo trauma he didn't yet understand. 7 days to decide whether he was still running from the past or walking into it. He stepped into the hall, and behind him the dog let out one quiet, broken sound that hit Cole harder than any explosion he'd ever heard. A sound like a soldier calling out for someone who might not come back. The shelter was nearly silent before dawn. Cole Hartman's truck rolled up gravelly and slowed the engine, shivering under the morning chill. Fog hugged the lot, curling into corners and obscuring the shapes of dumpsters and parked cars. The air smelled of wet asphalt, faint bleach, and the tang of the ocean wind drifting inland. Cole opened the driver's side door and felt the bite of cold on his face. He ignored it, stepping out in long, measured strides toward the quarantine wing. Inside, the concrete walls reflected a sterile, harsh light. The quiet seemed to pulse with expectation. Every metallic rattle, every creak from overhead ventilation made Cole's pulse spike because he knew what was waiting in the corner. Run a gray and white German shepherd named Rook, trembling with the accumulated terror of a lifetime and the trauma of a man-made war he'd never understood. Cole didn't rush. He pulled the worn folding stool from his truck and placed it about 8 feet from the kennel. He sat slowly, elbows on knees, body rigid but calm. From his pocket, he pulled a small foil packet of dried liver. The dog's head snapped up, eyes wide, ears, flattening, chest tightening. Cole whispered, "You want it. It's yours if you can take it." For 20 minutes, Rook paced and circled paws, clicking against the concrete nails, scraping against metal body coiled with both hunger and fear. He inched closer, only to retreat the instant. Cole shifted slightly. "You always this patient." Jared's voice broke through the silence from the hallway. Cole didn't look up. Patience isn't a choice. It's a necessity. Jared exhaled slowly. "I don't know if I'd last an hour." Cole let the pause hang. He was counting heartbeats, not minutes. He watched every twitch of Rook's ears, every flare of the nostrils, every flick of the tail or lack thereof. This dog had learned the sky could kill him. He had learned that men with hands and voices could bring pain from nowhere. Every inch forward was a risk. After 43 minutes, Rook lunged just enough to snatch the packet, retreating to his corner body still coiled like a spring ready to snap. Cole allowed a single exhale. That tiny act, the dog taking a treat without attack, was a victory carved in milliseconds. The second day began colder, a gray drizzle slicking the concrete. Cole arrived at 5:45 a.m., even before the fluorescent lights triggered. He carried nothing but the folding stool and the foil packet. Rook noticed him instantly. His body stiffened, hackles raised, but he didn't charge the gate. Instead, he circled in cautious, wary patterns, nostrils flaring, tail rigid. Cole lowered the stool about 6 feet from the kennel, closer than the day before. He rested his palms loosely on his knees, letting his presence radiate calm. He didn't speak at first, just breathed with measured rhythm, matching the dog's pattern without triggering it. The dog's eyes flicked to Cole, back to the gate, to the shadows in the corner. The low whine started softly, almost rhythmic, building to an edge of panic. Cole recognized the sound immediately. It wasn't anger, it was conditioned alertness. Combat stress. Fear tuned to survive. Cole's jaw tightened. He whispered, "Easy, soldier. Easy." Rook froze mid-step, then backed away slightly, ears twitching. The foiled packet of liver sat untouched in the corner. The dog wanted it. His instincts screamed at him to attack, to bolt, to retreat, but he was trapped between hunger and fear. "Good boy," Cole murmured, voice soft, steady. "If you want it, take it." 30 minutes passed. Rook inched closer. He sniffed the air cautiously. His black nose twitched as if scanning for invisible threats. He circled. He lunged. He froze. He backed away. Cole didn't flinch. His body was a still anchor amid the storm of the dog's panic. He closed his eyes, briefly remembering Kandahar. Dust choked the streets, gray and thick, a curtain over everything. Cole had been walking point with Coda, his black and tan military working dog. The alleyways between mud brick buildings smelled of diesel, trash, and decay. Cole's boots sank into gritty sand with each careful step. Coda paused abruptly. No growl, no bark, just froze, head-high ears, flat eyes wide, scanning the rooftops. Cole keyed the radio, high-threat possible explosives. His voice caught in his throat. A click, a whistle, and then the explosion. Cole remembered the second plate. He remembered Coda lunging. Coda took the blast that could have been him or Avery. And Cole had run physically alive, emotionally caged in guilt for 15 years. Back in the shelter, Rook moved again. His paw touched the foil, then retreated. He was still scared, but curiosity flickered in his eyes. He sniffed at the packet and then at Cole's presence. One step forward, two back. Cole stayed still, not reaching, not leaning. The dog was recalculating. "Easy," he said. "I'm not here to hurt you." Rook froze. Then, slowly trembling, he took the packet and retreated to his corner. Victory again. Small, incremental, but tangible. Jared entered silently. "You're pushing him too fast," he asked. Cole shook his head. "I'm pushing him forward at his own pace." By mid-morning, the tension escalated outside. Deputy Briggs arrived, arm-wrapped, expression dark. He didn't hide the scowl, didn't attempt diplomacy. "He's loose-minded," Briggs said. "I've seen this breed. One false move, someone's in urgent care. Again." Cole's jaw tightened. "He's not loose. He's reacting." Briggs stepped closer. "You're wasting time. 7 days. Or he's done." Cole met his gaze evenly. "He's not done. Not if I can help it." Briggs laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "Help it. What makes you think you can?" Cole didn't answer. He looked past Briggs toward Rook. The dog's ears twitched. Briggs's presence had triggered old patterns, but the dog didn't bolt. He stayed watching, ears pivoting, chest heaving. Cole knelt, murmuring under his breath, "You're safe. I've got you." Briggs scoffed and left, muttering about liability. Cole exhaled. One battle won, another looming. The midpoint twist came that evening. Cole received a call from Avery, his old partner. The line crackled. 15 years of false guilt collapsed in seconds. "You didn't send him," Avery said. Coda chose. "He saved me. And you just ran." The truth hit Cole like a punch. He hadn't failed his partner. He'd fled. He had carried the weight of cowardice, not a bad decision, but inaction. He stared at the foil packet on his desk, at the dog in the kennel, and realized the 7-day deadline was now layered. He wasn't just saving Rook, he was saving himself. And the storm was coming. Day 2 ended with wind picking up. The overhead lights flickered. Rook, after an hour of pacing and hesitation, inched closer to the chain link, sniffing Cole's extended palm. Small progress, but visible. Cole whispered softly, "You're a soldier. You're a hero. And today you make the choice." Rook's eyes flicked toward him. Something inside the dog shifted. Not complete trust, but recognition. Cole leaned back on his stool, knees, sore arms, stiff, bleeding slightly from scrapes when he knelt on concrete. He had accepted the physical discomfort just as he had accepted the emotional weight of 15 years of lies. Outside, the fog thickened. Rain began to hiss against the roof. The storm would come tonight, and with it the next escalation. The dawn broke gray and bruised the sky, heavy with rain clouds that hung low over the shelter. Cole's truck crunched along the gravel as he arrived, boots wet and jacket soaked from the light drizzle that had begun during the night. Inside the quarantine wing, the air smelled of wet concrete and fear. Every metallic surface carried the echo of yesterday's panic. Rook was waiting, rigid, body tense, as if bracing for the storm that mirrored his internal world. The dog's paws were raw, the fur around his shoulders, matted chest heaving from restless panic. He hadn't eaten yet, and Cole knew better than to push. Today's goal was patience, proximity, and observation. Cole lowered the folding stool and placed it 4 feet from the kennel gate, closer than ever. He knelt, hands resting lightly on his knees, letting his presence radiate, calm but steady. The dog froze, ears, twitching tail, stiff breath, shallow. "Easy, Cole," murmured voice, barely above a whisper, letting the tone carry authority without threat. Rook made a tentative step forward, then retreated. Panic and instinct warred with curiosity. Cole's pulse quickened. Every flinch, every tremble, told him the dog was still calculating, still assessing. From the hallway, the metallic scrape of boots echoed. Cole didn't need to look, he recognized the sound. Deputy Briggs had returned. "You're pushing him too fast," Briggs said sharply, stepping into the open doorway, arms still bandaged. "I've warned you. That dog will bite again. Level 4 aggression." Cole kept his gaze on Rook. "He's not level 4, he said evenly. "He's level terrified. There's a difference." Briggs took a step closer, leaning over the gate, jaw tight. "Terrified or not, that thing will hurt someone. You're wasting time. The county wants him done in 3 days. Cole's jaw tightened. He remained kneeling, calm but alert. 3 days is your deadline. "I'm on mine." The dog's ears flicked toward Briggs, back flattening against his skull. Breath quickened. He paced, nails clicking against concrete, back half crouched. Cole exhaled slowly, voice low, rhythmic. "Easy. You're safe." Briggs scoffed and stepped back. "Safe from what, you? Or yourself?" Cole didn't respond. Instead, he held his hand steady, letting the tension radiate outward. It was a silent negotiation between predator and prey, or in this case, handler and veteran. The storm arrived mid-morning. Sheets of rain hammered the roof, turning gutters into shrieking waterways. Fluorescent lights flickered. Thunder rolled low and deep, vibrating through the walls, making concrete shiver. Cole's pulse matched it. Rook flinched violently at the first peal, claws skidding on concrete. He barked a sharp, high-pitched, panicked sound, more a scream than a warning. Cole stayed still. Palms, flat knees pressed, breathing steady. "Easy," he murmured again. "I'm here. Not a threat." Rook slammed against the gate, teeth clacking, metal fury and fear in violent oscillation. Cole didn't flinch. He didn't yell. He didn't offer treats. He just breathed with him, letting the storm outside synchronize with the storm inside the dog. 30 minutes passed. Rook's frantic lunges slowed the rhythm of panic, breaking down into low, hesitant growls. His ears twitched. His head swiveled, tracking Cole's presence. The dog was exhausted, mind racing but calculating. Not aggressive. Not surrendering. Evaluating. Jared appeared silently, coffee cup in hand, eyes narrowing. "That's incredible," he said. "He's still afraid, but not attacking." Cole didn't answer. He was watching the dog's chest rise and fall, observing micro-reactions, every twitch, every flinch, every calculated glance. Cole remembered the dust and heat of the alley, the warning signs Coda had given. Every paw step, every ear flick, every tense muscle carried the memory of the pressure plate beneath the mud bricks. Cole had hesitated not because he didn't trust Coda, but because he had let fear creep in. That hesitation nearly killed his partner. Coda had lunged, taking the blast that could have ended Cole's life. He'd carried the dog from the smoke and shrapnel, ignored his own injuries, and left the weight of guilt to fester for 15 years. He drew a slow, deep breath, feeling that guilt like a physical weight again in the rain-soaked quarantine wing. This dog Rook was his chance to make something right. Back in the present, Rook began pacing in tighter circles, growls deep and continuous. The rain pounded overhead, the gutters shrieked, and the fluorescent hum made a low buzzing backdrop. Cole extended his left hand slowly palm out towards the chain link. Not threatening, not inviting, just presence. Rook sniffed at it cautiously, ears pivoting, body tense. Then, unexpectedly, he stepped closer, paw clattering softly against concrete. He retreated. Cole's chest tightened. One step forward, one step back. A dance as old as fear itself. Jared whispered from the hallway, "You think he'll ever take at your hand?" Cole's eyes didn't leave the dog. "He already has. In Kandahar, he saved me. Now I just need him to trust me to save himself." Suddenly, a flash of lightning cracked the sky, the following thunder, a concussive roar. Rook leapt, panicked, slamming into the gate, twisting the latches slightly. Metal screeched, concrete vibrated. Cole didn't flinch. He breathed with the dog, letting the storm outside become the storm inside. The dog barked, lunged, spun. He was a whirlwind of fear, fury, and survival instinct. Cole remained still, heartbeat matching the dog's palms flat on his knees. Slowly, Rook's frenzy faltered. His growls became low and questioning. His body sagged in exhaustion but stayed oriented toward Cole. Jared whispered, "I've never seen him calm like that in a storm." Cole's jaw tightened. "He's not calm. He's considering options. And for now, I'm one of them." Day 4 arrived, gray and wet. Rain had left the air heavy and cold. Cole noticed the subtle shift in Rook's behavior. The initial explosions of panic were shorter, lunges less violent, growls less sustained. For the first time, curiosity began to compete with fear. Cole took a slow step forward and pulled a tactical muzzle from his jacket. He attached it to a long wooden pole, a tool, not a weapon, and held it out for Rook to investigate. The dog froze. Panic sparked, but instead of bolting, he hesitated. He sniffed. He retreated slightly. Then cautiously, inch by inch, he investigated again. Cole remained still. Hours passed. He let the dog confront the object at his own pace. Each sniff, each cautious lick, each hesitant approach was a minor victory. By late afternoon, the storm outside had worsened wind, rattling the roof sheets of rain, drumming relentlessly. Rook, trembling, backed away, ears flat, but he stayed. He was exhausted but alert. He hadn't lunged. He hadn't bitten. He was beginning to consider the possibility that this man might not hurt him. Cole exhaled slowly, letting the tension drain, though he knew the fight was far from over. He had brought the storm inside, and now together, he and the dog were learning how to weather it. The 5th day arrived with a heavy, oppressive stillness. The storm from the night before had passed, leaving shattered branches, slick concrete, and the smell of wet earth inside the quarantine wing. Cole parked his truck and trudged toward the kennel mud clinging to his boots. His back ached from kneeling and sitting for hours. Every joint reminded him that he was no longer 25, and yet the weight of responsibility made him move with deliberate precision. Rook was waiting. He had learned to anticipate Cole's steps, ears twitching, body, low nostrils flaring. But something was different today. The dog's panic was sharper, more refined. Every step Cole took, Rook countered with a defensive posture, a flash of teeth, a growl that vibrated deep in his chest. Cole lowered the stool just 3 feet from the gate. He knelt, hands resting lightly on his knees, and exhaled slowly. "Easy," he said softly. "Not a threat, not a fight, just me." Rook lunged immediately, a whirlwind of terror. Teeth clacked against metal. Nails screeched. But unlike previous days, he didn't retreat to the far corner after a single pass. His stamina was building. His calculation had sharpened. He would lunge, assess, then hold position, forcing Cole to maintain absolute stillness. Minutes stretched. Hours, it felt. Cole's palms were raw, knees sore, and the back of his jacket wet from the cold sweat that poured down his spine. The storm outside hadn't returned, but inside, the dog carried his own internal tempest. Cole matched it with controlled breath, rhythmic murmur, and absolute stillness. The alley was a blur of dust and heat. Cole's boots sank into gritty earth as he trailed Coda ahead, low senses straining. The device was an obvious pressure plate buried beneath rubble. Coda froze before the blast, every muscle taut, ears, flat eyes wide. Cole keyed the radio, tried to warn the squad. The second stretched. The second plate detonated. Coda lunged into the explosion, taking the blast for Avery. Cole's own body slammed into a wall from shrapnel, dust, screams, confusion. He survived physically, but the guilt the ice sent him consumed him. 15 years of running, hiding, carrying the weight of cowardice. Cole returned to the present. Rook's eyes met his through the bars, amber and white pupils dilated, scanning for invisible threats. Cole extended his left hand flat against the gate, offering CENTCOM patience. The dog hesitated, then inched closer. Step by trembling step, he sniffed Cole's hand. His muscles tensed. He backed away. He whined. Cole's voice dropped to a murmur. "Easy, soldier. You're safe." And then the hard part began. The sixth day brought the muzzle. A black basket-style tactical muzzle used in K9 training attached to a long pole. Cole set it 6 inches inside the gate, still keeping distance. Rook froze, tail stiff, eyes wide. His instincts screamed danger. The muzzle was a tool of the past, a shadow of abuse. Cole didn't flinch. He didn't move closer. He held the pole steady. Hours passed. Rook approached cautiously, sniffed, recoiled, then sniffed again. The storm of terror that had defined him for days burned out slowly, replaced by exhausted calculation. By the afternoon, the dog had allowed himself to stand 6 feet from the pole, eyes tracking Cole, nostrils quivering. Small victories, painstakingly earned. The memory was vivid. Cole remembered the split-second decision when he keyed the radio. Coda was poised. Pressure plate, second device. He froze, thought he had failed. The blast. Coda lunged, saving Avery. Cole carried the lie of failure like a second skin. Every anxious movement in Rook echoed that memory, panic, misjudgment, fear of the invisible, fear of commands that could kill. Now he understood it wasn't miscommand. It was misperception. The dog had acted, survived, calculated just as Rook was beginning to do. Day 7 dawned, the last window. Outside, low fog clung to the hills, obscuring vision. Inside, Cole could feel the dog's anticipation. The shelter felt alive with tension. Every step echoed through the concrete. Rook exploded upon seeing Cole, panic teeth, body lashing against the gate. But Cole didn't move. He remained an immovable anchor, 1 foot from the stool. Hands resting, breath steady. Hours passed. The storm outside began again, wind thrashing, rain pelting against the roof. Each peal of thunder jolted the dog, but Rook didn't leave the area. His growls softened, his panic tempered by recognition of Cole's presence. Cole extended his hand toward the dog, slowly, deliberately, palm flat. Rook hesitated, inches away, every muscle coiled, a snap of thunder. The dog flinched. Cole's voice dropped to a whisper. "Sits." Rook froze, ears perked. A flicker of recognition. Muscle memory of past commands. 1 step forward. Another. Slowly. Hesitantly. He lowered himself into a sit. Tentative. Perfectly controlled. Cole exhaled. He had reached the threshold. Micro set piece, #2. The storm escalates. The thunder rolled closer. Lightning flashed through the slatted windows. Rainwater sluiced down the concrete floor. Rook's instinct screamed again, but Cole's presence held firm. He kept his hand steady, voice calm, tone rhythmic. The dog whimpered, paws sliding slightly, but he did not bolt. His Saturday eyes locked on Cole. Body taut but obedient. The final test, leash acceptance. Cole extended a thin tactical lead. Rook hesitated, then let it slip over his head. Muscle tension, full body alert. But he did not snap. Did not lunge. Victory. Cole's mind flickered to the gas station, the payphone, Avery's voice, the truth he'd carried wrong for 15 years. He had not failed Coda. He had not sent him to die. He had abandoned the story, abandoned responsibility, but not the act. Rook's trembling obedience mirrored his own fragile return to reality. Cole understood now the 7-day deadline was never just about the dog. It was about him facing the consequences of 15 years of avoidance, of fear, of self-imposed exile. The dog's amber eyes met his. Cole realized something crucial. Rook had begun to trust, not blindly, but enough to act with restraint in the face of fear. and Cole, for the first time in years, could breathe. Evening fell. The storm intensified, windows rattling. Cole remained on the stool hand, resting lightly on the chain-link reading lines from a worn paperback as the dog paced, then sat, then paced again. Muscle memory. Trust. Survival. By nightfall, Rook was still tense, still wary, but he allowed Cole's hand near his head, sniffing and leaning slightly. Small, fragile. Victory, earned through patience, presence, and unwavering attention. Cole leaned back, exhausted. Blood from scraped palms and knees mingled with rainwater, but he did not care. He had held the line, he had weathered the storm, and in the quiet between flashes of lightning and rumbles of thunder, Cole realized the next battle was no longer about obedience. It was about rescue. The dog was ready, or as ready as he would ever be, to leave the cage. Cole exhaled slowly, voice low. "Tomorrow, soldier, we go." The storm howled around them, but inside something solid had formed, trust, tenuous but real, linking man and dog against fear and danger alike. The first thin light of dawn barely brushed the ridges of the Sangre de Cristo range when Cole Hartman arrived at the base of the old Sonora mine trail. The storm had passed, leaving the air saturated with wet earth ozone and the tang of distant concrete. Mud clung to his boots, dripping down into the gravel, but he barely noticed. His eyes scanned the trail, searching for any sign of Rook the German Shepherd, a veteran soldier in fur, a creature shaped by trauma he did not yet understand. The paw prints were deep, erratic, dragging in some places, evidence of a back leg crippled from fear and abuse. Cole's own pulse was steady, though his hands ached from the scrapes and cuts he hadn't properly treated. His breath rose in clouds, mixing with the fog that clung stubbornly to the trail. Every sense was alert. The faint smell of wet pine, the distant echo of water running down rocks, the slight creak of loose boulders underfoot, it all mattered. At the top of the ridge, he paused. Below, a deep ravine yawned like an open wound in the mountainside. Shadows pooled at the edges. Amber eyes gleamed in the dark like small suns alert, unblinking. Rook's back leg hung stiffly, his body coiled, ready to strike or flee. His growl was low, desperate, vibrating off the stone walls. Cole exhaled slowly, the storm of the past 15 years building in him and then being released step by step. Cole took a measured step forward. "Easy, soldier," he murmured, voice low and rhythmic. "I'm not a threat." Rook lunged instantly, teeth clacking against the jagged stone. The growl escalated into a frantic, sharp yelp. Cole braced himself against a ledge, palms flat, knees locked. He let the sound pass over him. This was no ordinary dog, and this was no ordinary rescue. Every movement was calculated, every breath synchronized with the dog's rising panic. The path down was treacherous slopes of loose shale, rusted rebar jutting like jagged teeth slick with rain. Cole adjusted his belt, looping a slip lead through the buckle, preparing a tether. One misstep, and both of them could tumble. Rook's eyes followed him, pupils dilated, every muscle tense. He knew something had changed in Cole. The air was different, steadfast, calm, present. Cole took the first slow step down toward him. Loose gravel slid underfoot, and Rook's ears pinned flat. The dog crouched low, ready to bolt or bite, yet did not flee. Cole's heart pounded, not from fear, but from recognition. The dog's instinct for survival was now balanced against trust in him. He whispered again, "Easy. Just a step. One step at a time." Cole reached the ledge 5 feet above the dog. From here, the drop to the bottom was impossible for Rook to climb unaided. Cole crouched, bracing his feet against loose stone. "Up, soldier." "We do this together," he murmured. Rook hesitated. The injured leg trembled, muscles cramped. He flinched at loose gravel sliding beneath Cole's boots. Cole extended the slip lead toward him, letting the dog investigate its purpose. Not a leash, not a weapon, just a lifeline. Rook sniffed, circled, retreated, then inched forward. Step by step, inch by inch, the dog accepted Cole's presence as an anchor rather than a threat. Cole descended slowly, talking softly. "I've got you. I've got you." Not a threat, not a fight. His voice was the calm center amid a storm of fear. Rook followed, dragging his injured leg paws, slipping nails, scraping against stone. The two of them moved as one, a fragile but determined unit. Loose rocks tumbled past them, clattering into the ravine. Rook yelped sharply, Cole murmured reassurances. Neither stopped. The memory struck with the weight of a physical blow. Dust choked the alleyways. Coda, black and tan, froze with ears flat and eyes wide. Cole keyed the radio. High threat pressure plate. The seconds stretched. A whistle, a click. Then the explosion. Coda lunged, sacrificed himself to save Avery. Cole slammed into a wall, blood in his ears, dust in his lungs. 15 years of running, hiding, and bearing the lie that he had sent his partner to die. Now he understood. Misperception had driven him into exile. The guilt he carried was not his own failure. It had been his failure to witness the heroism around him, to stay present when it mattered most. 20 yards from the top, the slope narrowed. Cole braced himself. Rook's stamina was waning. His back leg trembled violently. The dog's body was coiled tense, ready for flight or attack, but he looked at Cole with that same amber intensity, the same intelligence that had made him a soldier. Cole whispered, "Up, you're a hero. You've chosen this path." Rook's front paws gripped loose stone. Trembling, he lunged. Pain shot through the injured leg. Cole's arms supported the weight of the dog as he hauled him over the last jagged edge. They collapsed together onto flat rock, heaving mud, and blood-mixing hearts hammering in unison. Rook pressed his head into Cole's chest, trembling. The growls and frantic lunges were gone. Recognition, trust, exhaustion tempered with relief. Cole's own breath shuddered. 15 years of guilt, trauma, and exile were slowly dissolving into this moment. The walk back down the trail was agonizing. Cole looped the slip lead under Rook's chest, guiding him, supporting his weight. Every step required negotiation. Every misstep could send both tumbling down the slick shale. Yet Rook leaned against Cole, dragging the injured leg muscles taut but obedient. No lunge, no panic. Only the trust forged in 3 days of agonizing patience and presence. By the time they reached the flat gravel trailhead, the storm had cleared. Sunlight filtered weakly through gray clouds, illuminating mud-caked fur and a weary, proud dog. Cole looked at Rook and allowed himself the first small smile in years. Meredith ran forward first, sobbing. "Oh my God," she cried. "You're alive. You're both alive." Cole held the slip lead loosely, letting Rook sniff, investigate, and ground himself. The vet tech's hands were gentle as she assessed the leg-applied temporary splints. Cole's palm brushed the dog's head. The pressure was grounding for both. Jared approached, hands tucked, expression softening. "You did it. Both of you." Briggs, standing stiffly to the sidearm, heeled rifle slung, studied the dog. He had expected chaos, destruction, disaster, but instead he saw calm obedience, alert intelligence, and a wounded veteran leaning on his human partner for support. Cole knelt beside Rook, letting the dog press his head against Cole's chest. No words needed. Trust had been earned, patience rewarded. The final test had been passed. Meredith lifted Rook into the transport carrier, carefully supporting the injured back leg. Cole followed, monitoring every movement, whispering softly, "You're okay, soldier. I've got you." Inside the clinic, fur was cleaned, wounds assessed. Cole watched the vet tech work, marveling at the difference between the trembling animal he had met 7 days ago and the exhausted, trusting dog now leaning on him. When the carrier doors closed, Cole exhaled. Months of guilt, trauma, and self-imposed exile had found resolution in a single act of presence and courage. Weeks later, in the quiet of the shelter yard, Rook walked steadily, gait slightly stiff but proud. The fence surrounding the yard secure, the kennels orderly, the sun pale and clean on winter snow. Cole observed a young handler, Mike, seated on a 3-legged stool facing a trembling hound mix. Cole's presence was still calm and guiding. He allowed Mike to learn the same lesson: patience, trust, and unwavering presence are stronger than any command. Rook trotted beside Cole, tail wagging faintly. They were partners, soldiers, survivors. Cole felt a satisfaction he had never known, a purpose beyond survival, to heal, guide, and protect. Cole knelt, pressing his palm to Rook's thick neck. "You did it," he whispered. "We did it." For the first time in 15 years, he felt the weight lift, not gone, but acknowledged. The past trauma and guilt could be remembered without control. Trust, earned and fragile, allowed them both to step into the world. 2 veterans, 1 human, 1 canine, stood together, scarred. The first snow of the season dusted the valley with a fragile, glittering layer, softening the hard edges of the shelter and the mountains beyond. Cole stood on the porch of the small stucco cottage, the wood smoke curling into the crisp morning air. Rook lay stretched in a patch of sun on the yard, back leg healed, fur thick and clean, tail giving a slow, deliberate wag. He was calm now, a veteran soldier in fur, survivor of storms, both literal and internal, grounded and present. Cole's eyes swept the yard and the kennels. Dogs, once trembling in terror, were now walking with tentative confidence, handlers learning the rhythm of patience and presence. The storm had passed, but the lessons remained. Trust could be rebuilt, fear could be contained, and healing often came in slow, deliberate steps. He knelt beside Rook, hand resting lightly on the thick neck, feeling warmth, strength, and a connection that went deeper than words. "You did it, soldier," he murmured, voice soft and rough with gratitude. "We did it." Rook nudged his hand with his nose, a silent acknowledgement, a quiet promise. Cole felt it as a mirror. The dog's healing reflected his own. For the first time in 15 years, he didn't carry the weight of failure. He carried the lessons, the memories, the responsibility, but without the crippling guilt. Meredith approached quietly, clipboard in hand, watching the two. "You've given them more than safety," she said softly. "You've given them hope." Cole exhaled slowly. The cabin in the mountains still existed, the solitude still tempting, but he no longer needed to hide. He had found purpose outside of isolation, a way to honor the past without being trapped by it. Every dog that came to the shelter, every veteran handler, every small victory of trust and courage was a continuation of the redemption he had finally claimed for himself. He glanced at Rook again. "You taught me more than I thought possible," he whispered. The dog's eyes met his, amber and steady, as if understanding. The lessons were mutual. Survival wasn't just about instinct. It was about presence, patience, courage, and the willingness to stand through fear together. In the distance, the mountains glimmered in the soft light of morning, rugged and unyielding. Cole stood brushing snow from his jacket and took a deep breath. The world was waiting not as a place to hide from, but as a place to act, to protect, to heal. The journey wasn't over. There would be more dogs, more veterans, more storms, internal and external, but Cole had discovered something essential, that the deepest wounds could be bridged, that courage could be reclaimed, and that the act of saving another life, human or canine, was also the act of saving oneself. Rook rose, stretching and trotting to Cole's side. Together they moved toward the kennels, a silent partnership of trust, resilience, and quiet triumph. Each step forward was a reminder that healing was rarely instantaneous. It was deliberate, steady, and sometimes agonizing, but it was always possible. And in that still, pale morning light, with frost glittering on the earth and the mountains standing like sentinels, Cole and Rook walked forward, scarred but unbroken, a testament to patience, courage, and the quiet power of second chances. The past had shaped them, the present had tested them, and the future, bright, uncertain, and full of possibility, awaited.